Let's talk improving your rabbits. It doesn't matter if your rabbit's for show or your rabbits are for meat, you should have a goal in mind of where you want to get to improve your stock. It could be that you want shorter shoulders, or you want larger, faster grow-outs. And once you pick that goal, you should be moving towards it. With those new goals in mind, you also want to make sure that things that are good in your lines do not slip through the cracks. The way we mitigate that is about once a quarter, we'll go through our rabbits and we will choose something to improve. We'll take note of commonalities that we see in the lines and what we want to do to improve those things. So currently on my Rex, I'm working on grow out and shorter shoulders. But my Rex have really great coats and really nice hindquarters. So while I'm working to improve my shoulders and my grow out, I need to keep an eye on my hindquarters to make sure that they remain in a good state. This is where my paperwork comes in. I try to get all of my rabbits on camera, either through video or through photography, to take a look at their type. I also take a tremendous amount of notes to see where I want to improve. I also make notes on what breeders seem to be producing when they're mixed with other breeders. And then I'll work forward to there. Now, I'm a show breeder, so my notes are more extensive than a meat breeder. If you're a meat breeder, you should be keeping track of your grow-out rates, your litter sizes, whether something is a good mother, and figure out how to improve from there. Whatever you're trying to improve, it's important to not get barn blind. It's really easy for us to get stuck and caught up on what we think looks good compared to what we had last year. Friends and family are more harsh to our stock than we are, and they can give you an open-minded answer on what they think a problem might be. That's one of the biggest reasons I go to show. I have friends from each breed that'll look over my photos and kind of give me an idea of what they see versus what I see. So for instance, young Lemon here is looking to be a prospect to replace his father, Alpha. He has a shorter shoulder and already he seems to have a better grow out. He also is very happy this morning. But I won't know for sure if he's going to be a good sire to the program until he's fully grown out and he has his first or second litter. So I'll be holding on to Alpha for now just to see. This is Solstice. Solstice is one of our Vienna carriers. When she was born, she had a little white mark on her forehead. It has since grown out as she has gone into adulthood. With that being said, we have never taken her to show before, but she produces blue-eyed white babies when paired with our Vienna carrying buck. And my only problem with her is that all of the blue-eyed white babies that she has produced so far have been bucks, and I need a doe for the program to replace her. But overall, she is a fantastic mother. She produces very large litters. She has been able to keep those litters. And on top of that, she is a great foster. She's actually the one that's been looking after Belle's champagne babies. And overall, she's just a really sweet doe who normally does very good at keeping kits. So we'll be keeping her in the program for a while yet, and she has just been fantastic as a brood doe. I quite often get a lot of comments and questions about teeth. More specifically, how we manage our rabbits' teeth without having extra chews and such in the cage. And a lot of people are shocked to find out that chews most times aren't necessary, and that rabbits can manage their own teeth with a pellet or just hay. But with this statement, there are some caveats. Problems with teeth are either genetic or caused by injury. Every rabbit that you see in my barn has great teeth genetics. And that's because it's another thing that we breed for. A rabbit's teeth should look like this. They shouldn't be budding, and the lower one shouldn't be going up against the upper one like this. When you see the teeth growing funny or out of whack, it's called malocclusion. And again, it's a genetic issue or something caused by injury. And it's something you shouldn't perpetuate in your lines. If you have rabbits that have teeth issues or teeth that are constantly needing trimmed in a rabbit, rethink breeding that rabbit. And if you are raising meat rabbits, I implore you, no matter the type or how good that rabbit looks, cull that rabbit from your program before you breed it. At the end of the day, it is not worth dealing with the problem of bad teeth in your lines. And just like everything else in my barn, teeth are checked monthly. It's part of every health check we do. It's also a part of every single evaluation we do with our kits. Malocclusion is a problem that we will cull an entire line for. Thankfully, I have never dealt with it in my lines, and I hope to never have to. But if it ever does happen, it is something, again, I'm not willing to deal with. So if you're ever worried about these guys and their teeth, don't. The hay and pellets take well enough care of it. Also, on a side note, look how chunky my babies are getting. They're getting so big. I am so proud of how well they are doing, and they are just stinkers. They're just bad little stinkers. So I really enjoy the quail, I'm not going to lie. They are just a pure delight to have, and they are really fun to hatch and to grow and to eat. With that being said, are they more efficient? In some ways, yes, and in other ways, no. It is amazing to get meat and eggs guaranteed by 7 to 8 weeks old. But when you're looking at input-output, they are not as efficient as rabbits are. Our jumbo-sized quail at 8 weeks will butcher out to about half a pound of carcass, compared to my Californians that at that point will butcher out to be about a 4-pound carcass to a 5-pound carcass. Or my Rex, if I were to butcher them at that point, would be about a 3 to 3.5 pound carcass. And if we move on to a sustainability standpoint, remember you do need some kind of electric to run your incubator to make this sustainable. That could be electric from the traditional way, or it can be solar powered. Whatever that is, you are going to be reliant on an incubator, because even if you have a hen that goes broody, she is not going to be able to sit on the amount of eggs and hatch the amount of eggs that you will need to sustain yourself. So if you want to raise quail, go for it. They are a ton of fun. It's a great separate meat source. I love the eggs. I love watching the babies hatch. But rabbits are still more sustainable if you are trying to get into homesteading and prepping and feeding your family. This is Butcher Alpha 1 Charlie. This is a little chinchilla kit out of our most recent chinchilla Rex litter. This is one of the smaller babies, and I'm just not really liking the size compared to the two that I'm looking at keeping for growing out. This was the runt of the litter. She's very small, very petite, and just hasn't filled in very well. So when you pose her up and you look at her, she actually doesn't have too horrible of a type. I like her here down. I don't like how long her shoulder is, but her high point's nice, and she looks like she would have a really nice slope over her body if it weren't for the fact that she's not filling in over the hindquarters and loin. So she's just a little bony, and she's just not gaining weight, even though for the most part she's on a free feed. So just not my favorite, not going to keep her. She's gonna go towards feeding us or feeding the dogs. So these guys are in their transport cages because I am removing them from the barn and putting them into the butcher barn. Basically, this group of rabbits is out of my Rex litter that I just don't want to keep in my program. So for the next 2 months, they'll go to the butcher barn until they are of a good weight to butcher out. I normally make the choice of who stays in the regular barn and who goes to the butcher barn around 8 to 12 weeks of age. These guys are currently 9 weeks. And these guys are here because either I don't like their type or they are just smaller than the litter mates that I want to keep. Out of this litter, I kept 2 babies. I kept a solid chinchilla and a broken chinchilla. Our health checks are pretty simple. Once a month, we'll take the rabbit out of its cage, we'll get a good weight on it, we'll check eyes, ears, nose, teeth, trim nails, and just generally go over the health of the rabbit. And then I'll also make any notes of anything that needs to be kept track of. So for instance, this little doe could probably use a touch-up on her ear tattoo, and she's also molting pretty bad. So her coat's looking a little bit worse for wear because it's coming out. But every Monday I will rotate through the barn and pick a group of rabbits to do a health check on. I just have too many rabbits to do all of them in one day, so it works out really well for us. And if there are any major health concerns, I will note it and take care of it. I thought that this was a super interesting premise to a question. Do I ever change my mind on a rabbit I put in the butcher barn to bring back and use as a breeder? When it comes to recent memory, the answer is no. And that's because when I put something into the butcher barn, it's normally for a really good reason. It's either a runt, it has really long shoulders, its type is off, or it has a definite fault that I don't want to perpetuate in my lines. So if something's going into the butcher barn, it stays there. Now, what I have changed my mind on are keepers. So for instance, this is my pen of keepers out of a couple of litters. These are babies I really liked at 8 weeks old, who are just going to chill out here and I'm going to let grow out and kind of decide down the road if I still like them or not. Now this pen is the one that I will change my mind about constantly. So for instance, I can look at one of these does right now and be like, ooh, I really like this little silver fox. We call her Freddie. I really like her. And in about 4 to 5 weeks, I can look at her again and go, oh, what was I thinking? Because as they grow, something changes on them. They don't fill out the way I expect them to. And that is a great reason as to why, if you are looking at a show animal, maybe hold off on it for a little bit. Don't just buy something at 8 weeks old because you think it looks good then. Wait until the animal is 12, 16 weeks. Now, with that being said, I am just super nitpicky right now on a lot of my lines because the things I am fixing are not huge things anymore. They are very small, annoying things that I just have to keep working on. So in this pen, if I don't like the way something is growing out, it doesn't mean it won't be good for somebody else's program down the line. So for instance, this little broken chinchilla doe might have too long of a shoulder for me, because I'm getting super nitpicky on shoulder lengths. But she might be perfect for another person's program who's trying to work on depth and height of the high point. Or maybe I'll have a silver fox that is over-silvered and wouldn't work for my program, but there's another program somewhere where somebody needs an overly silvered animal to balance out their under-silvered animals. If y'all haven't heard me talk about Freddie, I absolutely love Freddie. She reminds me very much so of her mother, Vanessa. She is just a sweetheart. So I guess all of this very long explanation to say I normally don't change my mind on butchers, but I will change my mind on keepers. This is Sadie. She's a mini Rex. We have gotten a best of group, best of variety on her at one of our shows. She is actually the dam of our caster program, and she's a bit odd looking because she's a high rufous caster, but when paired with a black-based rabbit, such as Strawberry, she creates these gorgeous looking caster babies that have the correct rufous, and they're absolutely perfect. So I've absolutely enjoyed having her as a doe in our program. We are looking at getting out of casters. I say this like every day, but with that being said, we might replace her with one of her daughters. We might not. I really do love casters. It's just they're not very popular right now for show, and I'm always on the fence on whether I should get rid of them to make space in our barn or if I should just keep one or two around. But this is Sadie, and she is just absolutely gorgeous even when blowing coat. So when it comes to this question, there are more questions that need to be answered, because there's a lot at play when it comes to a mother who cannibalizes her own kits. Was this mother a first-time mother? Was there any vitamin or mineral deficiencies? Was the doe scared? Were there predators around? Did the doe overgroom her kits and cause said cannibalization? Was the kit already deceased and was being eaten by the mother to hide the evidence? And there are other questions you could ask as well. The question here is, what can we do to mitigate the chances of a mom cannibalizing her litter? What can we do to make the birth, the pregnancy, the time she has with her kits easier to where she won't do it again? If it was a mineral deficiency or a vitamin deficiency, we can give her cooked bacon, we can give her rolled oats, we can give her black oil sunflower seeds. We can up the amount of pellets she has or hay. We can give her a space that is more secluded away from the rest of the rabbits in the barn, or a darker place to hide. There are so many answers to the question that you pose that it's honestly just easier to ask, what have you done to mitigate the problem? Because a lot of problems that we do see in the barn has to do with our management as a barn owner. How do we manage our program to lower mortality rates? What do we do to better our breeding program? So there's a lot more questions to be answered with this simple question. I actually posted a 10-minute video about this on my YouTube if you want to check out the long version. But the short version is you just get to know your lines. I know how my babies grow out, how their shoulders and their hindquarters fill in, so the more I get to know these lines, the faster I can make these decisions. And remember, the decisions I am making straight off the bat within the first 8 to 9 weeks are the definite I don't want to keep. They're the really bad stock, they're the runts, they're the ones with extremely long shoulders or pinched hindquarters, or very off markings that I don't want to perpetuate through my line. So basically I can cut out about 50% of the litter that I know I don't want to keep. And then I can start taking that other 50% and slowly start chomping it down to 1 or 2 animals. Basically, I am only keeping the best top 2 animals in my program for as long as possible to mitigate feed costs. Because I know for sure she's better than the 3 babies out of her litter that I currently have in the butcher barn. One is hay stashing and teasing Belle, and I just thought it was cute. So we are switching cages. But basically, my program is so small that I need to keep the very best. So if I can automatically pick out the very worst and only keep them for a minimal amount of time possible, then that's what I'm going to do.